be running your city, so pay very close attention. So we'll start over here with Corky Boozé, and you will make your 1-minute opening statement.
Do you want to introduce me and tell them about the machine? Tell them that the lights are...
Oh, I think he knows. When you see the red, that's the end of it.
Okay.
And that means the end of it. Oh, go ahead, sir.
Okay. Ready? Whenever you're ready, John.
Right now. Right now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm glad to be back in Atchison Village. You know, I started here with Chief of Police Chuck Bennett and Ron Berry. But tonight I want to talk to you about my 3 items. One of them is public safety. I want to share this with you. This is what your auditorium looked like when we have no police presence. It took 4.5 hours for the police to get there, and they still haven't written a report, or have they found the people that did it. You know my name, Corky Boozé. You know what I represent. I fight for the people. Right here, when I was the vice mayor of your Richmond City Council, I was in China as a representative of the city of Richmond. I brought back $3 million project, which will end up to be 10 when it gets done. And when they say, thank you, Vice Mayor Corky Boozé, you don't get any better than a picture. We have to get our public safety together. I was talking with the chief today in a Zoom meeting, right here on 2nd and McDonald. I'm getting tired of seeing those people hanging out on that corner, doing all the stuff they're doing. And a little later on, I'll be able to tell you more about what I'm going to do. But you remember the name, Corky Boozé, the guy who was at City Council before, who fought for the community, including this place right here. So Atchison Village, thank you for having me here. Is that a red light that's on? Wait a minute.
John, we need to tell them when the yellow light comes on, it means they have 15 seconds.
15 seconds.
And since Corky Boozé went over a little bit, I think we should allow everybody.
Do I
So-
get 15
Okay.
seconds?
Well,
15 seconds
you
more?
keep track of
Okay,
a little
I'll
bit
just
over.
give
That's
it 2
fine.
minutes. 2 minutes, everybody.
All right, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
2 minutes?
Yeah, you got another
Oh,
45 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
I just love you. I'll tell you, you need to join my team.
She's powerful.
I hear that, see that. So anyway, as I've told you before, I've been a huge fighter for the city of Richmond. As you know, I ran for the city council many times. And when I got elected, I made a whole lot of changes. Your project for the Chevron refinery, whether you like Chevron or not, it still represented jobs in the city of Richmond. We have to do something about building. We have to make our community a better place and invite the contractors in. This morning, again, as I was talking to the city manager, we need to speed up our permit process in the city of Richmond. We had that once before. And then also the budget. The budget is off the charts. Once again, we borrowed money again today. I don't know if a lot of these people know that, but we were on variable interest for the money that we borrowed, and we finally got a new one for 3%. Okay, thank you very much. I'll hear
And
more.
thank you. That was Corky Boozé, and our next candidate for mayor is Eduardo Martinez.
No, it's City Council.
City Council. I'm sorry, City Council, Eduardo Martinez.
No.
Yes, we're not
You're
in
okay,
a good configuration.
Sorry, Doria Robinson.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. My name is Doria Robinson. I'm a third-generation Richmond resident running for City Council here in District 3, where I grew up, where I raised my kids, and where I currently live. With over 20 years of strong community, small business, and city staff relationships, I will be a councilwoman who can work together to get positive things done for District 3 in Richmond. As the Executive Director of Urban Tilth, I have successfully developed and managed a multi-million-dollar budget, created jobs for over 54 local residents, and programs that support youth and provide healthy food to over 500 Richmond families every week. I was appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom to the California State Food and Agriculture Commission, and I'm endorsed by Supervisor John Joya, Local 188, Professional Firefighters, SEIU, Lift Up Contra Costa, Sierra Club, and a growing list of community leaders who have worked with me over the last 20 years and know what I can do. If elected, I will be proud to be the only Black woman serving on Richmond City Council. My platform is focused on housing, which I think is essential. It's a focus on economic development, sustainable economic development, because yes, we do need to raise and grow the general fund. It's also focused on climate and planning for crisis and disaster. We saw what happened to our city when COVID hit. We need to have better plans in place to deal with the coming crises that will be happening. They will continue to happen, and we should have a plan. And finally, I want to continue to make sure that Richmond is a place where low-income families, like my family, have the right to live an honorable, decent life, where they have the resources they need to thrive. Thank you.
That was Doria Robinson for City Council, and the next candidate is Oscar Garcia for City Council.
Good afternoon. My name is Oscar Garcia, and I'm running for District 3, Oscar G for District 3, so you can remember. So I'm born and raised in the Iron Triangle, just actually down the street here off of Bissell. My grandfather moved into the area in the 1950s, and most of my paternal family has lived literally down the street for most of my life. I remember coming here for family parties, family that lived here in the village, and over the last couple of years I've served as president of the Iron Triangle Neighborhood Council. Very recently, if you received a reminder about the dumpster day, I was the person who went to the post office and had that delivered for you guys here in Atchison Village. I'm running because we have a lot of issues in the city. We have streets that are not being taken care of. We have huge increases in insecurity. People are not feeling safe. And we also have a huge issue with homelessness. Who's been over to the Castro Street encampment that's just down the street? So I intend to bring some new leadership. I'm that person who's been active the last 5 years, calling into the City Council, advocating for all of you here in the room to make sure that we have a voice, and unfortunately they're not listening to us. And I'm that lone candidate that will ensure that they do listen to us. And so I will make sure that we prioritize public safety and also to bring investments to the city so we can address these issues with the infrastructure. I work with state policy with renewable fuels. There's a lot of money right now with renewable fuels and to address climate change. I intend to bring every single one of those dollars here to Richmond so that we can have a better Richmond. So please vote Oscar G for District 3. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Oscar Garcia. If anybody has any questions, please come up right now and ask your question. You have a question?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't get up. Because of district elections, you will now be elected by the good people of District 3. But once you're sworn in, are you going to be a representative of the kingdom of District 3, or are you going to represent the people of Richmond?
Who wants to take on that question? All right. Oscar Garcia.
So that's a very good question. So one of the main reasons is that I'm running is that I was highly encouraged by many of the leaders here in District 3. As part of my leadership here in the Iron Triangle, I have the endorsement of many leaders here in the district, including several neighborhood council leaders, based on my work and commitment, like I mentioned earlier, advocating for everyone here in District 3. I also have the endorsement of regional leaders, such as the mayors of El Cerrito and San Pablo. This is very important as well because we have a lot of citywide issues, including homelessness, that require that we all work together. I also have a history of being a bridge builder. I don't have a, quote, set of friends. I work with everyone. And that's what we need right now in the city. And that's actually one of the things that distinguishes me in the race. I have a history of working with everyone, and that's the type of leadership that we need. We don't need someone that's going to go to the city council, bicker, create issues, and do other things. We need someone that can work with everyone. Thank you.
Doria Robinson.
So I think it's a both and answer. Like, I am absolutely going to represent the residents of District 3. I think that the power of district elections is that District 3 will get a voice. And there'll be somebody who intimately knows District 3 who can bring forward concerns. But of course, this is a whole city. It's not just a collection of neighborhoods. And problems are bigger than one neighborhood or one city even. There's county, regional problems. So we need to be able to work on in both fields. We need to be able to represent Richmond. We need to be able to create a vision for Richmond that attracts business. We need to also serve the actual people who live in District 3 who have not had a voice for so many years. And just to say is that, over the last 20 years, I've worked intimately with the firefighters, with people from all city offices, putting forward projects like dumpster days along the Richmond Greenway, like putting together the food access programs and everything. I've worked with so many different people, and I think that that's why I have the broad support. I believe in the power of people. When you invest in people, you can make long and lasting change. So if I am elected to this position, I will represent us. I'll represent all of us, all of Richmond.
Thank you, that was Doria Robinson. And do you have something to say, Mr. Corky Boozé?
Thank you, John. Once again, thank you, Atchison Village. If your mother's in the hospital and she's having a heart transplant, would you rather have a paramedic work on her or a doctor from Harvard or Yale? And that's where I come in. I have the experience. I've been there. I've done that. Look on the back of this brochure. Please do pick one of these up. From President Barack Obama all the way to Nancy Pelosi. I have been into Richmond, inside the, I lost my train here. I've been in Richmond for a long time. And when you guys had the problem here at Atchison Village about the motorhome, guess who you called? Corky. I'm the one that went out and told them they got to get that motorhome and that camper out of here. This is your community. You do not have to move to live in a better place. You just don't have to do it. So when you hear people here talking, you want to make sure, do they have experience? Since 2014, the RPA has ran your Richmond City Council. It's time for change. Thank you, John.
And thank you, that was Mr. Corky Boozé. Does anybody else have a question? Anybody at all? Anything bugging you? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to hear some more specifics from folks who haven't been in City Council of your past leadership experience in Richmond, how that has prepared you to come to City Council.
And who wants to tackle that one? Doria Robinson.
And so I keep saying that I've had 20 years of experience, and so I've been the executive director of an organization here that served this community, specifically District 3. We actually started our work on the Richmond Greenway right here, and worked at Lincoln Elementary and other places. So not only did I start an organization that started as a all-volunteer organization with zero budget, but actually over the last 16 years have grown it to a $3.1 million budget and made a case that it was important that the way that we make lasting change in Richmond is to actually train and employ local residents from the communities that have need so that they have capacity to be change makers. And that's what you see in Urban Tilt and the organization today. Some of the people that we first started to work with at that organization are now serving as the assistants to Supervisor Joya. They are starting organizations like Land Trust. These were the young people who were forgotten and not worked with. I think that you can see the evidence of my capacity in the work that I've done. We're currently building a farm in North Richmond. We're helping to change policies around warehouses, not stopping development, but making sure that development that happens also cares for our health. In mandating that people transition their fleets to zero emission vehicles, that we work together with Supervisor Joya and Sierra Club on that. That's important. We want development, but we also want to make sure that we're protecting our health. So you can look at my history, you can look at all the things that I've done, from being on the Sustainability Commission in the county, to working now on the statewide agricultural commission, helping farmers get land and talk about parity and work on the farm bill, you can see the concrete impact of my capacity and my work all around in the city. Just look me up.
That was Doria Robinson. Does anybody else really want to respond? Okay, Oscar Garcia.
Thank you. So I, in addition to serving on the Iron Triangle Neighborhood Council, I also serve on the Community Police Review Commission, where we process and review complaints on the police department. And as part of that, I have a very good understanding of all of the public safety issues that have been occurring. One of the stats that I can share with you is we've lost so many officers the last couple of years, is we now have a force about the size of San Pablo's, a city much smaller in size and population. And that's mainly driven by the lack of incentives to keep our officers here, and many are leaving in droves. I also have served in countless other community-led commissions, such as the CARB, Air Monitoring Steering Committee, that I was appointed by John Joya. And I also have worked with many of the neighborhood councils across the district to advocate for things such as public safety and other issues that are important for the district. And lastly, my employment as an environmental engineer over the years, I've managed multi-million-dollar budgets and significant teams, and more recently, I've been advocating for biofuels and alternative energy at the state level. So I have a lot of experience with pushing policy that not only protects the earth, but also creates jobs. Thank you.
And thank you. That was Oscar Garcia. And Corky Boozé would like to say something.
Thank you. I like your question. Who has the experience? Corky Boozé has the experience. I'm the one who got Richmond Bill back on his feet by raising money from other companies to be able to see to that our kids learn a trade. Ladies and gentlemen, Kennedy High School is going to be torn down pretty soon. If you don't have a person that's your representative, you will not have a spokesperson at Kennedy High School for the new rebuild. These are things that you need to know, and the people that haven't been in politics don't understand that. Also, anybody that tells you that they can make anything happen in the city of Richmond shows they don't have any experience. Without 4 votes, you can't get anything passed in the city of Richmond. You have to know that. So experience, experience, experience. Don't let your mother die on that operating table for a heart transplant. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Mr. Corky Boozé. And does anybody else have a question? We'll go for a little while here, and then we'll go to the mayors.
I don't think the meeting's done. Because I have a loud voice. Specifically, could you,
Use it because we recorded.
oh, because you're recording. Specifically, could you address what you would do if you were elected to help the city address the issue of transitioning unhoused people into housing in an empathetic and caring way?
Okay.
John, can I start on that one?
Yes, you may. Mr. Corky Boozé will answer that question.
That was a great question. Once again, experience, 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 and history. If you remember, in 2013, I was taken to task from the city council because I was fighting for the Hacienda housing project that's over here off of Barrett. Take a look at it now. 14 years later, they finally got that thing going, and I made sure that any of the people that lived there at that time that were displaced had gotten a voucher so that they could go back to the Hacienda first. There's about 110 units over there, and I am going to see, as an elected official, you know I raise a lot of heck, but as an elected official, I'm going to see that we first start off with the unhoused people and give them the opportunity to live in that beautiful brand new place. Thank you.
And thank you. That was Mr. Corky Boozé. Anybody else? Oscar Garcia. Would you like to answer the question?
So one of the benefits of having participated in the city council meetings over the last couple of years is I actually know what the issue is and have the data of what the problem is. There's about 100 individuals living, for example, in the Castro encampment that's here down the street. And based on the work done by nearby cities, such as Berkeley, there is a humane way of addressing this in a way that it isn't causing these individuals to live in squalor. It's horrific. If you haven't been, please stop by there. The city has failed these individuals. And I intend to use the models created by, for example, the city of Berkeley that has been steering these individuals with to the supports they need, whether it's a month's rent, to mental health or drug abuse help, because the state, and especially Caltrans, has the resources to ensure that it's not Richmond residents paying for this. In addition, the county as well has many resources through Measure X to be able to do this. So this is all experience and knowledge that you will have on the City Council based on my involvement and activity over the last couple of years. My opponents do not have that experience. Thank you.
And thank you. That was Mr. Oscar Garcia, and Doria Robinson would like to answer the question.
Hey everybody. So one experience I do have is the work that I've been doing on Richmond Greenway, which has folks that live out there. And the way that we work with and address the issue on the Greenway is we talk to them. We don't just deliver random things when at different times of year we come to them and actually do a survey of what the needs are, getting exactly what they need, the right shoe size. Some people needed access to medications, they got free health care but didn't get actually the money to buy the prescriptions that they needed. So we talk to them and we get what they need. I think that we need to actually go out and talk to all of the people who are unsheltered, who are living in these encampments. They're really intense problems. Some of them are dealing with intense drug addiction. Some of them have mental illness. We need to actually first stabilize the populations. If it was a natural disaster and people were no longer in their homes because it was a fire or a flood, they would have restrooms. They would have a place to use the bathroom and relieve themselves. They would have food. They would have clean water. We would not look away and act like they're not there. We need to stabilize them, and we need to have a plan for transitioning them. That means not only some of the great things that the city of Berkeley was doing that Oscar mentioned of, some people, got into a situation and all they really need is that first and last month's rent in a way, because some of them are actually working and living out of a tent or out of their car. So some of them need just that transitional money, but some of them need a lot more. So we need to actually establish some transitional housing. The city could use federal funds, grant funds, to purchase apartment buildings, other things, to create transitional housing. There's some great references and programs in Marin that actually have a stepped program where you would start in emergency housing, and then you get stabilized with a coach. They figure out what your needs are and help you get your papers back, establish safe mail, figure out if you need health care, things like that, and then they transition you up to a transitional housing where you're sharing with other people, and then they stabilize you more and help you get a job, and then they transition you up again to your own apartment at a reduced rate, and then they transition you again onto your feet. We need a program like that in Richmond. I know it's a regional problem, but we cannot turn our faces away anymore. And there are federal dollars for this, there are grant money for this, there are foundations that would support it. We could do it.
Okay. That was Doria Robinson. Does anybody else want to answer that? Okay. Is there anybody else with a question? Oh, how am I going to reach you?
Sorry, do you have a time on these? Because she doesn't know.
No.
For their
Try to
responses.
limit them to 2 minutes if you don't mind.
2 minute,
Yeah.
2 minute and answer. Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to go further. Does anybody else have a question meanwhile? Yes. Oh, sure.
Okay,
Okay. Okay.
I'm not trying to hog.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
How would you address the underfunding of the police force?
Oh. Who wants it? Oscar Garcia wants to answer.
So having served on the Community Police Review Commission, I know firsthand the struggles with public safety overall, not just with the police department. The fire department has also lost over 20% of their members as well. So if you have a health issue, it's going to take that much longer for someone to respond to you. But more relevant here to Atchison Village, recently we had 2 homicides just down the street. And my understanding is backup had to be called in from other cities in order to address the chases that happen throughout the city as a result of those 2 homicides. That is not sustainable. Our officers are in many cases working 18-hour shifts, and in addition to that, they are also having to contend with a city council that doesn't care about them, is the general feedback. How can you show up to work and be productive when the leadership does not care about you and cuts your budget and says that you're not important for the city? Unfortunately, District 3 is who's taking the brunt of these cuts, as reflected by the recent 2 homicides just a couple weeks ago. I grew up in Richmond when in the 80s and 90s when crime was at its peak, and that week I actually got calls from people making sure that I was safe. That is horrible. And that's not the Richmond that my little nieces and nephews who live down the street from here deserve to live in. And my plan is definitely to have a well-resourced city council driven by job creation and tax revenue so that overall city services are in good shape. So please vote for Oscar G, District 3.
Okay, does anybody else care to tackle that one? Yes, Doria Robinson.
So I believe that across city government, we have a vacancies problem, right? The city staff, there's huge vacancies across the city staff. You talk to firefighters, there's vacancies and they're pushed to their limits, they're working overtime, it's actually pretty dangerous for them. And similarly in the police department, there's vacancies. What I want to talk about is what do we need to be safe here in Richmond. And I feel like what we need is we need trained professionals who understand how to respect members of the community, who address violent crime, who actually solve crimes, which I think is an issue that we need to address more directly. I don't know if you all have experienced it, but I've had my car broken into. I was attacked in my own house by an invader, punched me in the face with my kids outside. I've had guns put to my head. So I believe we do need trained people who can help us, but people who actually will help us, will actually go the limit, do the things they need to do to solve crimes. And I'm not sure we're there right now. I'm not sure we're there, just to be quite honest. And we need to work on that. When you have a problem, you don't turn away from it, you don't point fingers, you say, how do we solve this problem? You know. And so I think that's where we're at. And I also just have to say before I sit down, especially with my experience working on the Greenway with people who have serious mental health problems, with people who are addicted, there are some situations that are not good for police. I have witnessed me myself, calling the police for help because somebody was getting violent, but they were having a mental break, they were schizophrenic. And police did not know how to handle it. They brutalized that person. They were afraid for their own safety, I understand that, but that person was not in their right mind. They were not, it's obvious, they're talking to they're talking to people that are not there. And we need to address that as well. We need to be the human beings that we are and come up with innovative solutions. And some of that might mean rethinking the way we think about public safety in a more holistic way.
And thank you, that was Doria Robinson. Does anybody else care to answer the question? Mr. Corky Boozé.
Thank you very much for that question. It's ironic that Mrs. Robinson sits here and tells you about all the things she did for the police department, but one thing she did do, her group took the funding from the police department and the fire department. So let's keep it real clear. I sat on the oral board to get one of the best police chiefs we ever had, Chris Magnus, here in the city of Richmond. I had more ride-along hours in a police car than anybody, including some of the police officers that were riding with them to make sure we stopped the crime. Along with Chris Magnus, we got together, I brought Tent City to the city of Richmond. Do you know what Tent City is? It was when all those homicides were going on that Mr. Garcia was talking about. We set up a tent and stopped those homicides, along with the help of Councilman Bates, myself, and Chief Magnus. He is now at the top of his line in Los Angeles, in Mexico right now, working for the President of the United States. So when you talk about experience, you have to have somebody that puts their feet in the trenches. The RPA took the money from the fire department, they took the money from the police department, and they sit here and hide in the background and try to say they didn't have anything to do. Ask her, did RPA reduce the budget?
The RPA didn't reduce the budget. That was city council. What do you all
The
say?
candidates for.
Oscar Garcia was right on target when he was talking about sitting on the police commission. He did a nice job. See, this is where I get in trouble. I just tell the truth, folks. Sometimes it doesn't make you feel good, but the truth sometimes hurts. With that, I just want to say, do your research, you'll see what I'm talking about. Thank you, John.
Okay, that was Mr. Corky Boozé. A lady back here wanted to ask a question.
Thank you. So, being on the sitting on the city council is a huge time commitment, and honestly, I'm sure it will come as a great shock to my neighbors that I am very opinionated about issues in the city of Richmond. And so when I moved to Richmond 8 years ago, I started writing to the city council quite regularly about things that I was concerned about. And in my experience, almost none of the city council members ever respond to, at least to my messages about issues. As a matter of fact, the only person sitting here who has ever responded to me is Mr. Martinez. So I am asking the past council members and the prospective council members how you will manage your time in order to be able to take your part-time job as a city council member and respond to your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. And who cares to tackle that question? Okay, Doria Robinson.
So if elected, I'm actually going to be reducing my time at Urban Silk. I've been putting things in place, creating the leaders that I need in the organization so that I can actually reduce my hours. And I'm actually proud of that. That's what we need. We need, other people to be taking over and having their visions moving forward. And I also think that it's important to get more people into politics to understand. So I actually would love to start an internship program at City Council to get support from youth and young people who are interested in the government, who can actually support City Council members and help them respond and help them be more attuned to what's happening in the community. And just a last little statement, Chris Magnus and I are actually friends. There's a falsehood that happens, kind of a brand that people try to put on you if you associate with different people. I have a lot of friends across a lot of different things. He has been a mentor. I still talk to him now, chat with him up on Facebook. Don't believe everything you hear. Some people are complex. Some people create relationships with other people, not just with organizations. Thank you.
Okay, that was Doria Robinson. Does anybody else? Oscar Garcia.
So one of the benefits of working for a company based in Europe is my afternoons are very flexible once my European coworkers have gone to home for the day. And so with my prior experience of having worked not only in Iron Triangle but other community programs, I know how important it is to be receptive to feedback from everyone. And so I will be receptive to emails, to Facebook, social media, name it. I'm active and will be responsive. And so if you have a preferred way of reaching out to your elected official, you will get a response from Oscar, because I'm very active, like I said, in all forms of communication, and I know how to work them very well. And so I know also that often the issue that you have, it may be difficult to reach out. And so I think it would be tragic if your elected officials are not being responsive. So you will have in me someone that will be responding to all of your questions, inquiries, feedback, etc. Thank you.
And thank you. That was Oscar Garcia, and Mr. Corky Boozé would like to answer the question.
And to the lady with the dog, I'm a dog lover too, so your question was well taken. I have, as I stated, been on the city council before If you know the history of Corky Boozé, they used to say, he comes to every city council meeting and never misses one, which is true. I never missed one. I never missed a city council meeting, only when I was in China. That was the only time that I missed one. And I spend my time, well, let's just say semi-retired, because my son has a business and I work there. I do things like meet with President Barack Obama, meet with Vice President Kamala Harris, with Gavin Newsom, with Willie Brown, and as I told you, Nancy Pelosi and Barbara Lee. Every one of those. And that's to make Richmond a better place. Time is very important. You have to have the time in order to sit on that city council. There are people that call you. Councilmember Bates and myself sat on the Public Safety Committee. You know what we did? They kept complaining about on Roosevelt that the cars were speeding. We put the speed bumps over there, just the two of us together, through the Public Safety Committee. You have to have the time, you have to know what you're doing, and with that, you can make the city a better place. Thank you, John.
And thank you, Mr. Corky Boozé. And I think that's it for that. You want to ask a question? Well, they come over here. Oh, let's take this lady first, and then you come over here. We'll take two more questions.
In my opinion, the term defund the police is put out by the media as a scare tactic. And so I would like to ask Doria, in response to saying that you defunded the police, I would like to know your response to that. Did you defund the police?
Okay, Miss Doria Robinson.
So I am not actually directly involved with the group that has been working on revising police patrols, police budget, or anything like that. I don't serve on it. I'm not involved with it. That doesn't mean I don't think that we need to make some changes to the police department. That doesn't mean that I don't think that certain things that the police do, that if you actually talk to police officers, they will tell you that they're not equipped to handle, that we shouldn't address. I think just like, so no, my short answer is no. I had nothing to do with it. I was busy building a farm, and working with all the things and getting food to people and setting up veggie RX programs with people who have chronic disease who work at our clinics. That's what I've been doing over the last little while. And through my work on the Greenway, I have seen what happens out, just how police are forced to interact with community given the current situations, because we have not created what we really need to have holistic safety. And I feel like we need to be responsible adults, we need to be imaginative, and we need to come up with creative solutions. That to me does not mean dismantling the whole police department. I have been, and imagine we'll need, someone to help with a situation. I have called the police myself when members of my staff had guns pulled on them in the gardens. I believe that there's a place and a time for police where, you can't go up against a gun, And I also believe that there's a whole lot of other times where we need a different solution, we need a different tool. You do not use a hammer for everything.
Okay, thank you, and that was Doria Robinson. Does anybody else want to tackle that? Okay, Mr. Corky Boozé.
To the lady that asked that question, if I misinformed you, I did not say Doria did it herself. I said Doria is a part of the RPA. Now, if you ask her that question, if she's a part of the
Candidates only. Yeah. Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you.
Corky Boozé.
If you ask her if she's a part of the RPA, and she said the police didn't have equipment. They didn't have equipment because they didn't have the money to purchase the equipment. And when and if I should get back on the council, that will be my first order of business, to put the police department back at the financial situation that they were at prior to the RPA taking them apart. So let me make sure you understand. I am not saying that Mrs. Robinson did that. Please, don't think. I'm saying the group that she hangs out with is a part of are the ones that did it. And if you want to ask that question, that's a good question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that was.
What about me?
Yes, come up here.
Just a quick answer, folks. I am not an official RPA member, and I don't say that to demean the RPA. I feel like they have done a lot of really important things. And like I've said before, I work with everyone who has good ideas to make positive change here. I'm an independent candidate.
All right, that's fine. Okay, and this gentleman would like to answer the question.
I'm not a gentleman.
Ask me a question. This rascal wants to ask a question. Your turn.
Thank you all. I know you're all in very good faith, and that we need you. And I wouldn't do this for $1 million, what you're doing. It would be too difficult for me to deal with people like me. What I wanted to say is, it's always a cry for money. There are no funds, no funds. Now, I take a bus, I don't drive. I sit at Point Richmond. Can you all hear me? Yeah. I sit at the Point Richmond bus stop.
Only a question. Just ask him a question.
No. I sit at the Point Richmond bus stop, and cars go by through stop signs, one after the other. And I think if I had money, if I needed money, and I got $1 for each person going through the stop sign, I'd be rich.
Yeah.
There's funding here if you just enforce basic safety laws. My question is, will you?
Okay. Okay, anybody here to answer that? Okay, Mr. Oscar Garcia would like to answer that question.
Yeah, I guess one of the biggest misconceptions of our police department is that they just are there to rough people up. Unfortunately, we rely on them on a multitude of different services that we're not seeing nowadays. And that includes traffic enforcement. Who's recently had a close call while driving on the streets of Richmond? Unfortunately, the police department is unable to do any traffic enforcement right now, basically. Isn't that scary?
Yes, indeed.
And so, these are experiences that I've learned over the last couple of years, hearing from different stakeholders, serving on the Community Police Review Commission, being on the Iron Triangle Neighborhood Council, that we rely on the police for way more than arresting people. And we are seeing them not doing all of these things because now they can only focus on arresting people. So just think about that.
Thank you. That was Oscar Garcia, and Doria Robinson would like to answer that question.
Just to follow up, I'm a lifetime cyclist. I ride my bike. You can see me riding over through District 3 to North Richmond to the farm every Tuesday and Thursday. You'll see me riding there, riding back. My partner runs City Rides here in the city. I understand what's happening with traffic. I take my life into my own hands every time I get on my bike. And I hear when Oscar says, we ask the police to do so many things. So many things, all different kinds of things. They're highly trained people to deal with certain things, but maybe certain things could be under a different group, different purview. Somebody, a group of folks who could focus on traffic issues. There's I can tell you a whole list of intersections that are completely dangerous and that need to be patrolled. And how do we patrol them in a way that corrects the problem without creating more criminalized people who can't afford to pay the bills, the things? How can we make the streets safe without having people lose their cars, lose their jobs, and then end up on the street and be a part of another problem? How do we solve a problem without creating another problem? I think we need to think smart. I think that we need to be creative. I think that we need to use the resources that we have to come up with direct and creative solutions. I think that we can generate funds not on the backs of low-income people in this community.
Thank you. That was Doria Robinson. We're going to run short on time. We're not careful with these questions. This may be the last question. Mr. Corky Boozé would like to answer that question.
Thank you, John. If you own a business and your workers are not being paid enough money, they go on strike so they can get paid more money. if you have a police department and you down 30 police officers because the city council has decided they don't want to pay them or put the funds out so they can get the equipment to stop that, it's time to make a change. I don't know how many of you folks looked at Facebook with the young kids on the bicycles riding on one wheel in the back, running in front of a bus. I don't know how many of you had a catalytic converter stolen off your car and you called down the police department and they say, you make the report, we'll catch you later. That's unacceptable. I don't care whether you're trying to do something that doesn't incarcerate these people, but I believe if you commit a crime, you gotta do the time. It's just that simple. And when you take catalytic converters, and I'm in that business, the catalytic converter will cost you right at $700 by the time you get another one on there, plus your tow. That's unfair. Our government is there to make sure that we have a safe community. And with that, we have to make sure we pay our police officers. 30 police officers, how long did it take you to figure out, with 30 police officers gone, that we're going to have this problem? I don't think so. So let's try to listen to what's happening and go from there. Thank you, John.
And thank you, Mr. Corky Boozé. At this time, we will go in reverse order. I'm going to give you each 2 minutes to make your closing statements, and then we will talk with the mayors.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. This is a very important election that we have. We have a lot of things going on in the city, and you will have an opportunity to decide who will be your voice on the city council. And the real choice is, do you want to continue down the same path the city is in right now, or do you want to go down a better path? I'm the candidate that will ensure that we start going down a different path, because I've been listening to all of you the last couple of years. I've been active, I've been calling into city council meetings, and I've been working with multiple stakeholders throughout the district and the city to try to get things moving in the right direction. A vote for my competitors is a sign that we want to continue going down the same path, unfortunately. I'm the candidate who will ensure that we bring in the resources from the state, from the county, to ensure that we address things that are that have been ignored by the city council the last 5-10 years. And now we're seeing the consequences. So please join the mayors of El Cerrito, San Pablo, as well as countless neighborhood council leaders throughout District 3 who worked with me, who know that I work with everyone, who is a bridge builder, who is friendly with everyone, and that will bring civility and attention to what's actually important in the city council. So with that, please vote Oscar G for District 3. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Oscar Garcia. And Doria Robinson, you got 2 minutes. Closing statement.
So, I lived in Richmond all my life, except for the time that I went to college. It's 48 years. I was here for the crack epidemic. I lived on 445th Street, across from the Devon Community Center. I saw every single kid I grew up with killed in drive-by shootings. Some of them I witnessed myself. I know what Richmond was like. I know it intimately. And I know what we have today is utterly different. We have been changing and improving for the better. We do not have the same level of drive-by shootings, even though there's still murders. It is not at the same clip that it was when I had to leave Kennedy High School because there was shooting on campus. It is not there. We have been making improvements. Some of those improvements coming in the last 10 years. If you look around, you see development happening, things happening, positive things happening. That doesn't mean all the problems are taken care of. That doesn't mean, but it does mean we're moving in the right direction. As a lifetime Richmond resident, as somebody who grew up on welfare, I know we're moving in the right direction. working with all the young people, the Latino young people, the Black young people who are seeing how it's changed over their lifetimes, they know Richmond is moving in the right direction. And we need to continue moving in that direction. We need to continue moving towards a space where everyone has the right to a good job, a fair wage, a place to live, be able to stay in Richmond as they grow old so they can contribute here. Better schools, better parks, safer traffic, situations. Everyone knows these problems. I will be that creative, collaborative leader who is utterly devoted to Richmond. I know how to get things done, I know how to build capacity, and I want to do it for Richmond and District 3.
Thank you, Doria Robinson, and Mr. Corky Boozé, closing statement, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. And I was listening to what Mrs. Robinson said. The city is better. But guess what? I was one of the orchestrators of making the city better. Tent City, Hacienda, the Richmond Bill program, street repairs. All that while I was on the council was done. International traveler. None of these people can say that. I traveled all over the country, China, Japan, and made friends over there and brought businesses back to the city of Richmond, which will make our coffers look a lot better. Chief of Police, Chris Magnus. I'm the one that sat on the board and had the final vote for him to come on and become our chief. If you look at the back of the police car, the scripture on the back of that police car is my scripture that they put on there, making the community better. And so with that, and then of course I got to talk about Atchison Village. I spent a lot of time right down here at Atchison Village and making everything that you guys wanted to come to fruition. And again, like I say, when they had motorhomes out there, some people didn't like what I had to say, but we got a meeting together and we decided and discussed how we would solve the problem. And that's basically what you do. You have to bring people together to make it work. And then I'm going to tell you something else. Stand by, folks, because if you allow me to be on that Richmond City Council, I'm going to have to go to roundtable with our supervisor, John Joya, because the money that we're supposed to get here in the city of Richmond is supposed to come partly from the county that we have not been getting. Look at last night's city council. That'll tell you right there. And then again, like Oscar said a minute ago, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I wish that Oscar and I were not running against each other, because he's a gentleman that I could work with very well. And if you don't change that city council, you keep on doing what you're doing, you're going to get the same thing. In reference to the Office of Neighborhood Safety, I dealt with that one also.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Corky Boozé. If we want to take a brief break, we certainly can, and if not, we will go straight to the mayoral candidates.
Ask for a show of hands, how many people want to break or not?
If you want to show a show of hands, which way you want to go, candidates or break? Okay, we'll go straight to the candidates.